Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, dear teachers, students, and all internet viewers all around the world. Thank you for coming and watching us. It's a pleasure to see so many of you today at our first Studied Club event in our Copernicus High School in Nasielsk, Poland. TED is a worldwide non-profit organization devoted to spreading ideas, learning public speaking, and famous for its short, powerful talks on the stage. Our school has successfully qualified to join the program of TED Clubs, which is dedicated to sparking and celebrating the best ideas of young people around the world. For the last couple of months, some of our students were taking part in the TED Clubs meeting in our school, identifying their passions, learning public speaking skills, watching the best speakers on the internet, and preparing to share their ideas in the form of short style talks. Let's welcome our first Studied Club program, participants, and today's speakers. They have a very important message for all of us. Their presentation is about making value-based choices to save the planet. Ladies and gentlemen, Iga Brodowska, Julia Tyc, Karolina Popielarska, Chodyna, and Korycki. Let's give these young and brave people a cheerful applause.
Life on our planet is undoubtedly beautiful. We have so much to be grateful for. But every now and then we need a bit of reminding about our human activities.
According to many scientists, mankind is self-destructive. Compared with most animals, we, humans, have an unspeakable history of destructive behaviors: greed, environmental indifference, brutality, rape, torture, war, murder, and bad decision-making. Despite all our marvelous accomplishments, we have been the most ferocious and destructive force that has ever lived on Earth. Even right now, in our civilized culture, we have dozens of armed conflicts happening around the world, causing immeasurable violence and suffering. We have a hunger crisis and economic crisis, energy crisis and climate crisis. We have half the world living on less than $2 a day. We have islands of trash growing in our oceans. We have millions of animals slaughtered every day by animal production industry. We have teenagers involved in physical attacks, burglaries, drug deals, driving under the influence of drugs or alcohol offenses, and even murders. We have victims of psychological and physical bullying.
A few months ago, thousands of people in Poland witnessed an attack of hatred of the Polish city mayor, who was stabbed by a man who rushed on stage during an open-air charity event. The whole country was shocked. A socially active politician was stabbed in the heart and stomach and died in hospital. The attacker accused the mayor's former party of putting him in prison. Can you imagine it? The murderer killed an innocent man on stage because he hated the political party that the victim once belonged to.
What kind of society do we live in? Raise your hand if you feel that there is something wrong here.
If we actually wanted to save this world, we would need to answer the eternal question: why? Even in our everyday behavior, why have we humans been so competitive, selfish, and aggressive when clearly the ideals of life are to be the complete opposite, namely cooperative, selfless, and loving? Why have we seen unrighteousness as righteousness so that we have nearly destroyed our own planet? Perhaps we all forget about something very important that could give us a guidance. There is an old Aztec story about a small bird in a forest fire that perhaps will give us a clue.
Once there was a forest. In the forest there was a tree. In that tree there lived a little hummingbird. One day this forest was being consumed by fire. All the animals came out and they were watching the forest burning. All at the same time, this tiny little bird was just hopping up to the stream, filling its beak with water, and then sort of floating over the fire and dropping a single drop of water over the fire. Rest of animals thought that this idea was completely stupid and dangerous. But this tiny hummingbird didn't stop. And the eagle came to race back and said, "You're crazy and you're going to die. What are you doing?" And the little bird said, "The best I can." And the eagle got really inspired by this and started swooping down and picking up water in his beak and flying back over. And some other birds saw this, and the animals saw this, and pretty soon the earth started to shake as the animals started to flow back to the fire, and they started digging a fire line, and the sky became thick with birds, and the water fell like rain from their beaks. And the fire stopped.
This story seems like a metaphor for our times because the world is really on fire. The message of the story is to be the best and making the best choices as you can at everything you do. So you can even inspire others, but how can I know if I'm really doing my best making the best decision? Well, the modern science says, doing your best is the best you can do while being your best self.
The problem is, we often don't know how we can be our best self. Most of the time, when we feel lost, unhappy, unbalanced, or unfulfilled, it is because we feel that something is missing in our lives. According to the authors of modern positive psychology, we miss the universal values that are our life compass. Our core values guide our decision. They motivate us, they make us happy, and they play a fundamental role in our level of satisfaction in everything we do and live by. Our emotional well-being, our ambitions, motivation, and overall happiness are guided by our core values, and they make us express our best self.
Researchers found there are actually 24 character strengths, universal values common across all countries that help us to be at our best. Most of us haven't had a chance to focus on our character strengths. It's time to uncover the strengths. Don't you think? The hummingbird in our story applied the strengths of loyalty, respect, perseverance, hope, and others. Many of you probably also use some of these strengths in your lives. For example, if your character strength is honesty, then you live your life in a genuine and authentic way. If it's kindness, then you are kind and generous to others, and so on.
Your character strengths allow you to be your best self and make the best choices. Learning your top strengths and then applying those strengths to your daily life can boost happiness, improve the way you interact with your family, and help you as you pursue your hobbies and goals.
When you know what you value in life before you have to make a really tough decision, it helps with your decision process. You will be less indecisive because there is no questioning what you value. This is a great way to avoid wasting time and personal energy.
You also need to know that there is a battle that goes inside of most of us. The battle between what we think or feel and the value that we hold. The conflict between what we think like doing and values is even more important when it comes to doing what is right.
A 16-year-old climate activist, Greta Thunberg, who has been recently nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, explains our problem in her public speeches. She says the climate crisis has already been solved. We already have all the answers and facts. All we have to do is wake up and change. But we don't do it. Why?
Well, almost everything that is wrong with the world comes from people, either not having higher moral values or not living by them, because they feel they want to do something else. People who murder feel like murdering, and they do what they feel or think rather than live by the value of preserving human life. People who steal feel that they want the thing that they steal. The list is pretty much endless, and that's why good values are the most important thing any of us can ever have. Without them, the world would be a very terrible place. And remember this: the best people you know, meaning the nicest, kindest, and most honest, are people who battle their feelings or thoughts every day of their lives. So should you.
If the decision is asking you to go against your own values, it's easier to put your foot down and say no. If you make a choice that goes against one of your values, sometimes your body reacts. Your stomach may get upset or you get a headache. Can you think of a decision you made that made you ill? What values do you think you went against?
Now, think of a time when you made a choice that went along with your values. You probably felt a huge sense of relief because you knew deep down inside you made the right choice. Your chest or maybe your entire body felt warm. You may have felt a big burst of energy, spring in your step and smile on your face.
What world do you want to make? With this knowledge and positive psychology in general, and particularly in character strengths, you have the opportunity to make choices that tip humanity towards becoming the best version of itself.
This should be a message to all young people and to all of us that we cannot live the next 100 years the way that we have lived for the past 100 years of our lives. Some of you can say that these things are too complicated for us, but we think that we just have to be hummingbirds, doing the best we can, making choices based on our values. This makes us human and saves the world.
Ladies and gentlemen, from Copernicus High School in Nasielsk, Poland, Iga Brodowska, Julia Tyc, Karolina Popielarska, Chodyna, and Korycki.
And the stage host Kinga Fotek.